Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to thank New Frontiers for the opportunity to speak to you all here. And thank you, Carl. Thank you, Anthony. Now, in the next quarter of an hour, what I would like to do is to share with you what I feel a very exciting initiative happening in Hong Kong and indeed the whole Greater Bay Area in terms of clinical trial and drug development. Now, why do we want and need good clinical trials? And are we ready? As a clinician, of course, whatever that we do, we nowadays actually very much evidence-based. Before we use a drug, we need to know that the drug actually really works and what percentage of patients will improve, etc., etc. And of course, academically and as well as in terms of our standing in the healthcare, service and development, being able to run and conduct good clinical trials actually demonstrate our leadership. And finally, of course, being able to run and conduct multiple clinical trials will help bring in economy to the city as well as the region. But is the Greater Bay Area ready for clinical drug and trial development? Now, this is actually taken from the WCG only 1 month ago, actually, with people proposing what are the clinical trial trends and insights, actually, globally. There are a few things that I would like to highlight. First of all, diversity is important. We know these days that actually whatever we do, we take note of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. So trials are not run only in the Western countries anymore. It should be a more global thing. And then, of course, artificial intelligence, we heard so much about it, so I won't go into it. In order to actually run good evidence-based, trials, it is important that we need to start thinking about regulatory innovations. And to speed up things such as having a single IRB model is important. And with the new developments, coming up on a daily basis, it is important that we are prepared for new trials up on the horizon. And finally, actually, precision oncology. Cancer medicine is becoming more and more important. And these days, we don't randomly or treat patients with toxic drugs. We want to be precise. And what we really need is, therefore, biomarkers. Biomarker-driven trials is important. So in addition to running good clinical trials, a good biobanking system is also very important. Now, are we ready? And are people actually moving the clinical trials into this part of the world? This is just a slide showing you, in fact, one of our competitors, Singapore, is actually developing very well. And you can see that there are a lot of investment in Singapore from major pharmaceutical industries and companies from around the world. And indeed, we do all right in this part of Asia too, in China. China actually runs a lot of clinical trials, but there is still a gap actually that we need to fill. And that is, if you look at the various commercial clinical trials being run in China, this is actually data from a couple of years ago, sponsored by an overseas developer, actually represented in darker blue and sort of lighter blue, compared with those actually sponsored by our own Chinese pharmaceutical companies in pink. You can see that only 1/4, 1 in 4 commercial clinical trials in China are sponsored by an overseas developer. So obviously, more needs to be done. Now, we all know about the Greater Bay Area, the 9+2 cities, the area, the size, the population, the GDP, etc., and why it is so important to all of us. Allow me to actually share with you a bit of my imagination about the Greater Bay Area. If you look carefully, or if you use a bit of imagination, if this is the GBA map, the GBA map actually takes the shape of, to me, a Scottish dog. With the 2 ears, and the eye of Lau Chak-sing, and of course the body and the two front and two hind legs and the tail. And as you can see, of course, Guangzhou being the largest city in the Greater Bay Area is the spine of the Scotty dog. And where are Hong Kong and Shenzhen? One of the hind legs, one of the most powerful parts of this Scotty dog. Okay, so I believe actually Hong Kong and Shenzhen, part of the Greater Bay Area, have a lot to play actually in clinical trial development. And are we ready? This is Shenzhen, okay, this is taken from the China Daily newspaper. Actually, Shenzhen is really prioritizing itself in AI, in the new energy vehicle, as well as in biomedical industries. Whereas for Hong Kong, we are a small city with only over 7 million population. I actually stand in front of you here and I tell you that I feel very proud of the public health service that we have in Hong Kong. The hospital authority has done a lot of good work. Despite being small in size when compared with the larger health authorities within China, etc., we have probably one of the world's best electronic health record in the world. And because over 90% of people actually come to the hospital authority for management of their medical conditions, we are able to capture a lot of the data from almost the whole population of Hong Kong. I mean, I could almost say to you that if you want to do a trial in diabetes mellitus, for example, all you need to do is to press a button and you will know how many DM patients there are in Hong Kong and which of the DM patients are actually well controlled or not so well controlled by whatever drug that they are taking. And you can actually then go to this hospital or that hospital to recruit the patient for a trial of a new drug, etc., etc. So the hospital authority actually provides us a very good platform in running clinical trials in Hong Kong. And in terms of academic excellence, this is really just to show you the latest Times Higher Education World University rankings based on medical and health. 7 of the universities in Hong Kong in medicine and health actually ranked amongst the top 50 in the world. And as you can see here, that amongst the 7, 2 of them actually from Hong Kong, the Chinese University of Hong Kong as well as the University of Hong Kong. So we have done well actually, both in terms of our health service provision as well as our academic medicine development. And in terms of clinical trial development, there is not enough time for me to sort of go over all of the data. I just use what we have got from the Hong Kong U Clinical Trial Center, actually, to share with you. The government actually had the foresight over 25 years ago and actually supported the 2 medical schools to set up a clinical trial center, one in CUHK, one in Hong Kong U. And just to share with you the Hong Kong U data, you can see that actually we are now over 26 years old. We have run nearly 400 sponsored trials now. And we have over almost 400 sponsors, and we have run over 2,000 sponsored studies now. And what is more important is that all of the trials that actually run within the centers are both FDA and EMA approvable. And recently, in fact not so recent, almost 20 years ago, we also got NMPA accreditation on many of the centers or clinics that we have. So I believe we are ready. So the local government, as well as the Shenzhen government recently, actually decided that maybe it's time for us to really make this even bigger. If we go back to perhaps 3 years ago, almost 2 years ago in 2023, the WHO actually suggested that it is desirable for at least every country or jurisdiction to have at least one overall platform for conducting clinical trials, for supplying clinical trial personnel, etc. So Shenzhen and us actually have 3 months ago in November, actually opened what we call, on the Hong Kong side, the Greater Bay Area International Clinical Trial Institute, and on the Shenzhen side, the Greater Bay Area International Clinical Trial Center, with very similar mission and vision as well as objectives. So I will just share with you perhaps what we would like to do in Hong Kong. We actually aim to develop a thriving ecosystem for clinical research and biomedical innovation, translation, and development in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. And our vision is really to build a healthy and wealthy society energized by biomedical innovation, research, translation, and development. So these are some of the strategic goals that we have actually on the Hong Kong side, and as I said, similarly on the Shenzhen side as well. First of all, it is important that we ensure that we are capable of conducting good clinical studies. So top of the 6 hexagons, clinical research capabilities and competencies. We have done very well so far, but we want to do even better. We want to have an even bigger capacity in conducting clinical trials. We want to enhance our efficiency. We want to make sure that whatever that we do is of high quality and is compliant with national and international regulatory authorities. We want to work the bottom hexagon with the local regulatory agencies to innovate the better way to actually enhance and improve the running of clinical trials and approving clinical trials and approving new drugs. We want to work with the industry, and we want also to elevate the public's engagement and participation in clinical trials. So these are some of the strategic dimensions. In the interest of time, I will be very quick. In terms of process innovation and optimization, we want to make sure that it's not only the 2 medical school clinical trial centers running most of the trials, but we want to work with the hospital authority. We want to work with the private hospitals in running city-wide or regional-wide clinical trials. We want to enhance the human resources development, when we aim to actually set up an academy to train up not just the coordinates, but also the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, etc., and make sure that they are aware of the importance of clinical trials. We intend to run master's degrees on clinical trial development. And in terms of research, strategy, and development, we want to make use of the 1 country, 2 systems advantage of Hong Kong, and the 2 clinical trial institutes and center are actually located within the Keto area, and we want to make use of this one area, 2 sites advantage, so that we can actually communicate directly, and we can actually share and data between the 2 sites. And of course, we want to enhance communication with the industry, etc. So last couple of slides. So this is actually the timeline that we have. I'm only telling you the beginning of the story. I hope to be able to continue to tell you how we do over the next few years. And hopefully within this year, we will be able to work out something to help shorten the approval time, streamline ethical approval, common 1 single IRB, etc., etc. And we want to be establishing a close link with our counterpart in Shenzhen. Within the next couple of years, we want to also set up establish a clinical research coordinator pool. We want to be able to support public and private hospitals in and getting them ready for NMPA accreditation, etc., etc. So finally, we also need to advise the future development of clinical trials. One thing that I would like to highlight, and that is actually if you look at the projected leading 10 pharmaceutical products worldwide, actually, this was only recently published. And if we look at, based on the lifetime sales as of 2028 as predicted. You will see that, in fact, areas such as cancer medicine, inflammatory disorders, degenerative conditions, as well as infections are the most likely are the ones that we need to develop, and hopefully also help us bring in some positive economy as well. And finally, over the next few years, besides preparing ourselves to run some of the more traditional or conventional studies of small molecules or maybe even biologicals, it is important that we actually brave ourselves for the future. The potential use of genetic therapies, the potential use of cellular therapy, etc. Much needs to be done in terms of regulations, in terms of approval process, etc., etc. And we want to be able to contribute to this. And with this, I thank you again for the invitation, and I hope to be able, as I said, to come back and report to you how well we are doing over the next few years or so. Thank you.